Welcome back. Joining me now is international best-selling author of The War on the West, The Strange Death of Europe and the Madness of Crowds, Douglas Murray. We have a lot to discuss tonight, including the great Christopher Hitchens and the manner in which Islamism has been allowed to spread in Europe. But first, I want to speak to you about some of the lunacy we've seen right here in Melbourne with Extinction Rebellion protesters causing havoc. And Douglas, we're learning that these protests are not only mindless and disruptive, but they're dangerous too, with more than a dozen O emergency calls to police and 3 to paramedics delayed as a result of a recent protest here in Melbourne. You've written in The Spectator about how the hysterical and irrational are running the agenda, including the green fanatics of Extinction Rebellion.
Yes, I mean, it's the same across the developed world at the moment, Rita. Extinction Rebellion cause havoc wherever they go. They cause such havoc and seem to me to do such damage to the cause that they profess to care about, that you'd almost think that they were funded by the fossil fuel industry. I mean, they are so completely negative in what they push about. They disrupt the normal citizenry of our countries from going about our lives. They disrupt people going to their jobs. Very often you see these very privileged middle-class people stopping working class people from getting to work. We can see a couple of examples of that in these pictures that are running at the moment, I would suggest. They cause damage, and they also have absolutely no sympathy for anyone else. And I've said before, it's the typical call of the fanatics across the age. It's not just that they behave like fanatics and look like fanatics and dress like fanatics. They have the central thing that fanatics have, which is it's my way or nothing. And they say whenever they're asked about things like, holding up ambulances, getting to hospital with sick people, and they say, well, the planet's burning, we're all dying. And you think, well, that's your claim. That doesn't mean it's true, and that doesn't mean you can just do anything you want in the meantime. But of course, they've whipped themselves into this place where they think they can do anything they like because everything is on the table. And as I say, that's fanatics across the centuries would have recognized these guys.
They're absolute mad ideologues, this lot. You've also written this week about free speech. You wrote in the Free Press about the right to offend and the late, great Christopher Hitchens, whose work is all the more relevant now, I would argue. He did try to warn us about so much of what's happening right now, including the growing Islamism in the West and the efforts to criminalise criticism as hate speech. I want to play you a clip from Hitch. This is from some 15 years ago.
Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who will hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can.
Resist it while you can, Douglas. What would Christopher Hitchens make of what is happening in the West right now?
I think it's exactly as he warned about there. The presence from Canada to Scotland to Australia of a sort of petty bureaucrat generally who believes that they can and should have the right to decide what you and I and everyone watching can say, think, and read. That what offends them or what they think might offend somebody else who they feel offended for on their behalf means that you shouldn't say something or think something or observe something. I'm afraid those petty bureaucrats have only grown in number in recent years. I think Christopher would maybe be slightly surprised by the fact that, less and less is it men in clerical robes making demands on our free speech, and more is it paper pushing functionaries, faceless bureaucrats who insist on pushing forward laws that anybody who has any knowledge of freedom, and specifically freedom of speech, would know would not work and should not work in a free society. As I say, every country at the moment in the developed West, it's all about clamping down on what the majority can say, and that's reminiscent not of our societies, that's reminiscent of totalitarian societies. The whole point of free societies is that we get things out in the open and we have them out there. And everything short of incitement is opinion, is view, is to be open to challenge, but not open to censure and simple silencing. And as I say, in country after country, that's the direction everything is going.
And we are seeing a lot of self-censorship because of that. And I guess this next clip might be an example of that. I want to play this. It's kind of almost light-hearted, but it's not. This is a man being chided for eating his lunch during Ramadan when many of his co-workers are fasting. Have a look.
Look at this kuffar. Everybody's on Ramadan.
I know, I actually feel bad for eating.
And this
I'm going to have to put this away, ain't I?
This guy's stuffing his face.
I'm
This
going to
guy
have to stop.
he just sat here stuffing his face.
Now, it may seem in good nature, but as Yasmin Mohammed, who shared that clip, pointed out, the more you appease, the more you empower. That man should have kept enjoying his pasta.
Yeah, of course. I mean, every difference in the world lies between my or your right to practice our religion, our faith, or otherwise, and us trying to insist that somebody else observe whatever we believe because we believe it. Everything that has grown up in the West on freedom of religion and freedom of thought is predicated on the idea that I can have my beliefs and you can have yours, and we're part of the same society. The moment that you change that pact and say, actually, I have my beliefs and therefore you cannot have yours, everything changes. And then it becomes effectively an intimidation game or a numbers game. And that's obviously what was going on in that clip. If it had been the other way round, though, Rita, I don't need to say this to you, if it had been the other way round and a group of, I don't know, English workers were sort of horrified that a Muslim co-worker wasn't eating and they made him eat, wow, the front pages would be held around the world. We'd all be told about the Islamophobic British and much more. People should just think on that. Which way round is it actually easiest at the moment to try to push around and intimidate people? And it's that way round, I'm afraid.